April 16th. Approximately 1600 before Christ. A Minoan merchant wakes up on the deck of his ship. It's anchored off the northern coast of Crete near the palace of Knossos. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but something is wrong. He looks north and sees the impossible. The sky is black. It's not night. It's almost 10 in the morning. A giant column of smoke and ash rises straight into the sky, so high it disappears into the clouds. He estimates. It must be at least 30 kilometers high, maybe more. Where the island of Thera should be, his home, there is only darkness. His wife is there. His 8-year-old son is there. His entire life is there. And then he notices something even more terrifying. The sea is receding. The harbor water is disappearing. Boats are running aground on wet sand. Fish are jumping desperately on the exposed seabed. He has 2 minutes. 2 minutes before the largest wave the Mediterranean has ever seen reaches the coast of Crete and destroys everything the fee. Minoans built in 1,000 years of civilization. He screams, no one understands what's happening, and then the wave appears on the horizon, 35 meters high, moving at 400 kilometers per hour. This is the story of how an entire civilization can disappear in 48 hours. How the most powerful volcano in recent human history erased the most advanced city of the Bronze Age. And how this disaster may have inspired the most famous myth of antiquity. The myth of Atlantis. 4. The next 30 minutes, you're going to discover what really happened on the day the world changed. A day that buried thousands of people under dozens of meters of ash. A day that created tsunamis that crossed the Mediterranean. A day that turned the sky into night and covered Egypt with a layer of volcanic ash. Get ready, because this is not a story about kings and armies. It's a story about nature's fury, and about how no civilization, no matter how powerful, is safe from it. Before we continue, a quick request. If you're enjoying this story so far, help the channel grow by leaving a like on this video. It makes a huge difference in getting more people to know stories like this. And if you want more content about ancient civilizations, historical disasters, and archaeological mysteries, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. I post videos like this every week. All right, let's go back to Thera, 3 days before the end. April 13th, 1600. Before Christ. The city of Akrotiri, on the island of Thera, is one of the most prosperous in the known world. Imagine a city of almost 20,000 people. 3-story buildings with walls decorated with magnificent frescoes. Blue lilies painted on the walls. Dolphins leaping in colorful murals, monkeys swinging in eternal gardens of ochre and red pigments. The streets are paved. There's a complex sewage system, running water in elite homes, toilets with flushing systems. This in 1600 before Christ, 1,000 years, before Rome existed. Daedalus walks through the narrow streets of Akrotiri on this April morning. He's a merchant, 32 years old. Successful. His family has a 2-story house near the city center. His wife, Ariane, is the daughter of a craftsman who makes the most beautiful ceramics in Thera. His son, Miklos, is 8 years old and already knows how to read some linear A symbols. Daedalus is preparing for a trip. He's going to take obsidian to Crete. He'll bring olive oil and wine back. It's a route he's done dozens of times, but something is different this morning. Small tremors shake the ground. It's not uncommon. Thera has always had mild earthquakes. The island is volcanic. Everyone knows that. But in recent days, the tremors have increased. Daedalus notices that the birds have left. The seagulls that always cover the harbor have disappeared. The city's dogs bark incessantly. At night, they howl at the sky. His wife is worried. "Maybe you shouldn't travel now," she says. Daedalus laughs. "They're just tremors. Thera has always had tremors. I'll be back in 2 weeks, with gifts for both of you." He hugs Ariane, kisses Miklos on the forehead, and heads to the harbor. He doesn't know he'll never see them again. In fact, No one will ever see any of them again, because in 72 hours, Akrotiri will be buried under 40 meters of pumice and volcanic ash, perfectly preserved, like Pompeii, but 1,600 years older. And every person he knows, every street he walked, every wall painted with leaping dolphins, everything will disappear under a mountain of destruction. April 14th. One day before. The tremors worsen. They're no longer small shocks. They're real earthquakes. Walls crack. Ceramics fall from shelves. People run into the streets when the ground shakes. Something is happening in the center of the island. Thera is not an ordinary island. It's a volcanic island, formed by ancient eruptions. In its center, there's a mountain. Or rather, there was a mountain. Because what's in the center of Thera is actually a caldera, a giant magma chamber directly connected to the depths of the earth. And this chamber is full of molten rock, full of gas under absurd pressure, full of energy waiting to explode. Throughout the night of April 14th, the ground doesn't stop shaking. Some families decide to evacuate. They take what they can carry and flee to other parts of the island. Some even take boats and leave for Crete, but most stay. Because Thera is their home, because they think the gods will protect them, because evacuating an entire city is unthinkable. Where would they go? How would they rebuild their lives? So they stay and pray. In mountain sanctuaries, priests make offerings. They burn incense. They sacrifice animals. They ask the gods to calm the earth. The gods don't respond, because what's about to happen has nothing to do with gods. It has to do with physics, with pressure, with energy accumulated for centuries, in a magma chamber the size of a mountain. And in 12 hours, that energy will be released all at once. April 15th. The day. 7 in the morning. Daedalus is anchored near Knossos. He slept on the ship. He'll start unloading the obsidian as soon as the market opens. He looks north, to Thera, to home, and sees smoke. It's not smoke from fires. It's a gray column rising from the center of the island. He thinks about the tremors. He thinks about Ariane and Miklos, but the wind is calm. The morning is beautiful. He decides he'll finish the business and return home in the afternoon. He doesn't know that in 3 hours, Thera will no longer exist. 10 in the morning. In the center of the island of Thera, something catastrophic happens. The pressure inside the magma chamber reaches a critical point. The solid rock that forms the volcano's cap can't hold anymore. Cracks form. Superheated gas begins to escape, and then the cap explodes. Literally explodes. It's not a common eruption with lava flowing down the slopes of a mountain. It's a Plinian eruption, the most violent and destructive that exists. 400 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and superheated gases are ejected from the earth in a matter of minutes. The eruption column rises to 36 kilometers high. It enters the stratosphere. The explosion is 4 times more powerful than the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. It's 100 times more powerful than the atomic bomb of Hiroshima. The sound of the explosion is heard in Egypt, 1,000 kilometers away. In Akrotiri, Ariane is at home with Miklos when the world ends. First comes the noise, a roar so loud her ears bleed instantly. The windows explode, the walls crack. Then comes the shock wave, a wall of superheated air traveling at over 1,000 kilometers per hour. Trees are ripped from the earth, buildings collapse, people are thrown like rag dolls. Ariane tries to protect Miklos. She covers his body with hers. And then comes the pumice. Millions of tons of porous volcanic rock, hot, falling from the sky like hellish rain. In a few minutes, 1/2 meter of pumice covers the streets of Akrotiri. In an hour, it's 3 meters. No one can escape. People try to run. But where to? The entire island is being buried. The air is full of hot ash that burns the lungs. You can't breathe, you can't see, you can't think. In 6 hours, Akrotiri is under 15 meters of volcanic debris. In 12 hours, the entire island has disappeared. The center of Thera, where the volcano was, simply collapsed. The magma chamber emptied so fast that the mountain above it caved into itself, creating a submerged caldera, a hole in the seabed over 300 meters deep. Where once there was a prosperous island, now there is only a horseshoe of stone surrounding a blue abyss. And all this collapse created something even more destructive, a tsunami. Noon, in Knossos. Daedalus sees the sky turn black. He still doesn't know. What happened? He can't know. There's no way a human being in 1600 before Christ can comprehend what just happened 130 kilometers to the north. But he sees the column of ash. He sees the sky darken in broad daylight, and then he sees something that makes his blood freeze. The sea is receding. Fast, very fast. Boats run aground. The harbor bottom is exposed. Octopuses writhe in the sand. Fish jump desperately. And Daedalus, who has spent his entire life at sea, knows exactly what this means. Tsunami. He screams, "Run! Get away from the coast! Tsunami!" Some people listen. Most don't understand. They've never seen a tsunami. They don't know what it is. And then the wave appears. A wall of dark blue water, 35 meters high, the size of a 12-story building, moving at 400 kilometers per hour. It hits the coast of Crete with the force of 1,000,000 hammers. The port of Knossos is swept away in seconds. Ships are hurled 3 kilometers inland. Stone. Buildings are torn from their foundations. People are swallowed and disappear. Daedalus manages to run. He was far enough from the coast. He climbs a hill and sees the destruction below. He sees the water recede, taking bodies, debris, entire lives back to the sea. And then comes the second wave, larger than the first, then the third. For 2 hours, giant waves hit the coast of Crete, every coastal palace, every port, every fishing village, all destroyed. When it finally stops, Daedalus looks north, to where Thera should be, and sees only darkness. He falls to his knees. His wife is dead. His son is dead. His city no longer exists, and he's alone in the middle of the apocalypse. This story gets even more intense from here. If you're following along and want more people to know this fascinating historical tragedy, share this video. Send it to that friend who's passionate about ancient history and natural disasters. And leave in the comments, do you think the eruption of Thera inspired the myth of Atlantis? I want to know what you think. Continuing. April 16th. The next day. The sky is still black. Volcanic ash covers Crete. It's falling like gray snow, hot, suffocating. It covers crops. It clogs wells. It kills animals. In the palace of Knossos, the governor tries to understand what happened. Messengers arrive from all over Crete. They all bring the same news: destruction, devastated ports, disappeared coastal villages, hundreds, maybe thousands dead. And then, the refugees arrive. Survivors from Thera. Few, very few. Maybe a few hundred managed to escape before the main eruption. They're traumatized, in shock. They tell stories of an island that disappeared, of mountains that exploded, of cities swallowed by the earth. No one fully believes it. It seems too mythological, too impossible. But the refugees are there, and the ash keeps falling. Daedalus is among them. He's lost everything: his family, his home, his business, his entire life. He's not the same man. He never will be. And Crete is not the same civilization. It never will be. The following weeks, the ash stops falling. But the problems are just beginning. The layer of volcanic ash in Crete is between 5 and 15 centimeters thick. It doesn't seem like much, but it's enough. The crops have been destroyed. Wheat, barley, olive trees, everything covered by a toxic layer that prevents plants from growing. This year's harvest is lost, and probably next year's too. The wells are contaminated. The water is full of ash and sulfur. People start getting sick, and then comes the famine. Crete has always been rich because it traded. It exported pottery, worked metals, textiles. It imported grain when necessary. But now the ports are destroyed. The ships were lost in the tsunami. Trade routes have been interrupted. And Thera, which was one of the main commercial centers of the Aegean, simply no longer exists. Over the next months, thousands die of hunger in Crete. Not from the explosion. Not from the tsunami, but from the consequences. The Minoan palaces try to help. They distribute grain from stockpiles. They organize the reconstruction of ports, but the stockpiles run out quickly, and resources are limited. The Minoan civilization, which dominated the Aegean for almost 1,000 years, begins to fragment. Some palaces manage to recover better than others, but the unity, the prosperity, the power of Crete never return. And something else is happening, something the Minoans haven't realized yet. To the north, in mainland Greece, a new civilization is growing. The Mycenaeans, warriors, conquerors, Greeks, and they're seeing Crete's weakness. They're seeing an opportunity. 1450 before Christ, 50 years later. Daedalus is an old man now, 80-something years old, a miracle to live so long in the Bronze Age. He remarried, he had other children, but he never forgot Ariane and Miklos. He never forgot the day the sky turned black. He's sitting on the coast, looking north, to where Thera used to be. Now there's only the stone horseshoe, the submerged caldera, the tomb of 20,000 people. A young man approaches him, one of Daedalus's grandsons. "Grandfather," he asks, "is it true that you saw an island disappear?" Daedalus smiles sadly. "I did. Thera, the most beautiful city you could imagine. Colorful frescoes, clean streets, happy people. What happened to it?" "The gods were angry," Daedalus responds. "It's the explanation people accept. It's the story that makes sense to them. The gods destroyed the island in a day and a night. They sank it into the sea, and everyone who lived there disappeared." The grandson listens fascinated. "Is that why the elders say we must respect the gods?" "Yes, because no matter how powerful we are, no matter how rich, nature is stronger. The gods are stronger, and they can take everything from us in an instant." This story will pass from generation to generation. It will be told and retold. It will mix with myth and legend. And maybe, just maybe, 1,000 years later, a Greek philosopher named Plato will hear a version of this story. A story about an advanced civilization that existed in the Aegean, a prosperous island, surrounded by water, with magnificent palaces and sophisticated people, an island that disappeared in a day and a night, swallowed by the sea, and Plato will call it Atlantis. But that's just speculation, a theory. We don't know if Atlantis has any real connection to Thera. What we do know is this: Thera disappeared. Crete never fully recovered. And 50 years after the eruption, Mycenaean warriors from mainland Greece arrived on the island. They found no organized resistance. The palaces were weak, the population was reduced, the economy was ruined. They simply took Crete. And the great Minoan civilization, which existed for 2,000 years, began to disappear, absorbed by Greek culture, forgotten by history. Until in 1900, an archaeologist named Arthur Evans began excavating Knossos and rediscovered a lost world. We're approaching the end of this story. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, this is the moment. Because I make videos about ancient history, natural disasters, lost civilizations, and archaeological mysteries every week. And you won't want to miss them. Now, let's see what modern science discovered about this catastrophe. What we know today. In 1967, archaeologists began excavating Akrotiri, the buried city of Thera. What they found was extraordinary. A Bronze Age Pompeii, perfectly preserved under 40 meters of volcanic ash, 3-story buildings intact, frescoes on the walls so colorful they look like they were painted yesterday, ceramic vases, furniture, even carbonized food. But something was missing. Bodies. In Pompeii, archaeologists found thousands of bodies, people surprised by the eruption of Vesuvius, frozen in time by volcanic ash. But in Akrotiri, they found almost no bodies. This means something fascinating. The inhabitants of Thera were warned. They had time to evacuate. The earthquakes that preceded the main eruption gave them days, maybe weeks, to flee. Most managed to escape before the main explosion, but where did they go? Probably to Crete. And when they got there, they were hit by the tsunamis. So even having escaped the eruption, many died in the waves that hit the coasts. Modern science has also managed to date the eruption precisely, using tree ring growth, ice cores. From Greenland that preserved the ash, and carbon dating, scientists determined that the eruption happened around 1600 before Christ. Some say 1620, others say 1560, but everyone agrees it was one of the largest volcanic eruptions of the last 10,000 years. The amount of material ejected was absurd. 60 cubic kilometers of rock transformed into ash and pumice. The eruption column reached the stratosphere. The ash was found in ice cores in Greenland, 4,000 kilometers away. The climatic impact was global. The amount of sulfur thrown into the atmosphere caused a temporary cooling of the planet. In tree rings in California, scientists found evidence of cooler summers during that period. A single eruption, a single island, and the whole world felt it. But the question remains, did the eruption of Thera destroy the Minoan civilization? The short answer is, not completely. Crete survived. The palaces were rebuilt. Life continued. But the civilization was never the same. The eruption destroyed Thera, one of the main commercial centers. The tsunamis devastated Crete's ports. The ash ruined crops. Famine weakened the population. And 50 years later, when the Mycenaeans arrived, Crete no longer had the strength to resist. So the eruption didn't kill the Minoans directly. But it started the process. It was the first wound in a body that never fully recovered. And maybe, just maybe, this catastrophe created a collective memory. A story about an advanced civilization that disappeared in a day and a night. An island swallowed by the sea. A story that eventually became the myth of Atlantis. We can't prove it, but it's a fascinating possibility. Today you can visit Thera. The island is called Santorini now. It's one of the most popular tourist destinations in Greece. People go there for the beaches, for the spectacular views, for the sunsets over the submerged caldera. But few know they're walking over the tomb of an entire civilization. Few know that beneath their feet, 40 meters below, there's a perfectly preserved city. Streets, houses, colorful frescoes, frozen in time over 3,600 years ago. And if you go to Akrotiri, if you descend to the archaeological excavations, you can see those streets. You can see the walls painted with dolphins. You can imagine Daedalus walking there, Ariane painting ceramics, Miklos playing. And you can imagine the day the sky turned black, the day the mountain exploded, the day 20,000 people disappeared, the day that changed the Mediterranean. This was the story of the eruption of Thera, one of the greatest natural catastrophes in human history, a disaster that destroyed one of the most advanced civilizations of the Bronze Age and possibly inspired the most famous myth of antiquity. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Leave in the comments. Do you think Thera is the real Atlantis, Or is it just a coincidence? I want to know what you think. Next week, I'm going to tell the story of another civilization that mysteriously disappeared, the Hittites of Anatolia, an empire that rivaled Egypt and disappeared in less than 50 years. It's even more fascinating than this one. Until then, history never ends. It just waits to be discovered.